After a very tough loss to the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Baltimore Ravens take care of business on Monday Night Football against the Los Angeles Chargers. We talk about that game and look ahead to the game of the week, Ravens-Eagles, next on Ravens Talk. What a difference a week makes for the Baltimore Ravens. After losing in heartbreaking fashion to the Pittsburgh Steelers, they bounced back with a huge win against the Los Angeles Chargers, and a looming interconference matchup against the Philadelphia Eagles approaches. Welcome to Ravens Talk. I'm your host, Samuel Njoku. Ravens do take care of business against the Los Angeles Chargers. You know how the Ravens do on Monday Night Football. They take care of business, get a 30-23 win against those Chargers. Lots of good things yourself in that game. We'll touch on that game a little bit. We'll look ahead to the pivotal interconference matchup, NFC versus AFC, Ravens-Eagles at M&T Bank Stadium, 4:25 p.m. Eastern Time. Touch on that game. What are my thoughts? Do I think gets the job done? I titled this podcast and give you a hint of where I'm heading in that direction. We'll touch on a little bit about Lamar Jackson now. Lamar Jackson's starting to get into a little bit of a groove, and we're talking about maybe historical numbers for Lamar Jackson. We'll touch on that. But first, Ravens get it done against those Los Angeles Chargers in SoFi Stadium, Monday Night Football. What a game it was for the Baltimore Ravens. A little iffy there for some Ravens fans after a not so great performance from the offense against the Pittsburgh Steelers, but they do what they do best. They get back to their roots. We touched on this a lot this season. The Ravens do panic at times when they face double-digit deficits. I'm not talking 20-point leads or 30-point deficits. I'm talking about 10-point, 14-point leads for the opposing team. The Ravens get kind of nervous and start throwing the football, trying to make a comeback. But they need to calm down, touch on the fact that they're a great run team, rely on the fact that they have a defense that has shown flashes to be successful against these opposing teams now, especially after week 9. So the Ravens need to get their act together in that regard, and this was the first step in doing just that. Ravens are down 10-0 early. Ravens are not firing on all cylinders as they usually do. In fact, for a long time, about 6 weeks now, the Ravens have had slow starts, but this was another one. Ravens did not panic. They did not get into panic mode. They relied on Derrick Henry, relied on Justice Hill, relied on the leg of Lamar, even though Lamar didn't really do much on the ground other than that red zone touchdown. They relied on Derrick Henry and Justice Hill to get the job done. They did not panic. They did not force themselves into a one-dimensional type of offense, something that the Ravens have done in previous years, especially dating back to the AFC Championship game. So this was great to see. If you're a Ravens fan and you're wondering how will this team respond after a tough loss, you don't need to worry. The Ravens are on the right track, and hopefully the Ravens move in this direction for the remainder of the season. But Derrick Henry had a great game, and he had to because, there's a guy over there in Philly, and we'll touch on it. He's looking like he's facing an uphill battle for offensive player of the year. I won't say uphill, more like downhill. He's at the top of that offensive player of the year, and some may say even MVP candidate. But I'm still leaning on Lamar Jackson in that regard. We'll touch on that a little bit later. But Derrick Henry did what he had to do. He was unstoppable. He was stiff-arming guys left and right, definitely enforcing his will. And the Ravens fed off that. John Harbaugh fed off that. We saw there was a 4th-and-1 situation, 4th and inches, you may say, inside your own 20. I believe it was on the 16-yard line. Everyone was expecting the Ravens to punt. There was a time in which the Ravens actually got onto the line of scrimmage and tried to, force the opposing defense to jump off sides. They weren't being fooled. So we had figured that the Ravens would go ahead and punt the football and give their defense a chance to try and get the football back. But John Harbaugh was not having it. He knew that his brother Jim would have this team ready to go, and he needed to make sure that he matched the intensity of that opposing team in the Los Angeles Chargers. They go for it on 4th and inches, 4th and 1, whatever you want to call it, and get the conversion. Huge cojones by John Harbaugh. We definitely criticize Harbaugh a lot. And if you've been a coach for as long as John Harbaugh has been the coach for this one organization, there are going to be times when you get criticized for whatever reason. So I'm not criticizing the fans for doing so. All I'm saying is that criticism has to be looked at with a tight microscope, because what you're seeing here is a coach that knows what he's doing. He's not afraid of the backlash, not afraid of the criticism. He's trying to win football games, And it's easy to say now. Of course, I think this team will be entirely different had that conversion not gone the Ravens' way and the Chargers had an easy minimum 3 points to work with. But that's not the case. He understands that this is a short yardage team. Is there a better team in the National Football League that's able to convert on 4th and 1 other than the team that the Ravens are likely to face next week in the Philadelphia Eagles than the Baltimore Ravens? I mean, a case can be made the Ravens are even better on 4th and 2 and 4th and 3 because you don't get that brotherly shove in 4th and 3. I mean, if you're 4th and 3 and you're the Ravens, I'm confident in handing the ball off to Derrick Henry. I'm confident in relying on Lamar Jackson to get something going with his legs and either fake it off to a tight end or run it himself for a first down. That is what you have. So Harbaugh leaning to the strengths of this team, which is their run game. That's not to say that Lamar Jackson isn't that dude with his arm. We know that. And we'll touch on that again in a little bit. But I'm telling you, this was a fantastic performance by the team. But overall, coaching-wise, this was a huge, huge win for this team. Definitely a confidence boost. It shows, and they've received a lot of flack from national media. If you see me on other shows this week, you know that I'm very critical of the national media's perception of this team not being able to win against, the better teams. The statistics say exactly the opposite. The Ravens do perform well in big games. I touched on it a couple of weeks ago. The Ravens just have a problem with facing teams who are not afraid to be bullied. Something I think the Ravens will, in fact, be able to accomplish this season. But that criticism is warranted. Saying that you're facing a team that's maybe as good or better than you and the Ravens won't come out on top is foolish. If you watch this team as long as we have, Ravens fans, this team shows up for big games. It's the games against the lesser opponents that maybe, leaving a lot to be desired. But if you think you're a good team and you're going against the Ravens, get ready for a fight. The Ravens are not to be denied a victory. They weren't denied a victory. I know the score was 30-23, but for all intents and purposes, this was the 2-touchdown win for the Ravens. Defense was stellar. Let's talk about that defense because this defense was without Roquan Smith. Zachary Orr has been, criticized a great deal this season. Last few games now, the transition, moving of personnel, Eddie Jackson released, waived, unclaimed on waivers. So he's a free agent able to sign with any team he like. Marcus Williams only got 1 snap this game for the second straight week. So this is an entirely different secondary, entirely different defense. So if you're a fan of an opposing team and you're watching this team and looking at the stats and say, oh yeah, this team is terrible when it comes to defending the pass, I pump the brakes a little bit. This ain't their September and October Ravens defense. This is a November, December, January defense that is going to show out in certain aspects of their game. Now, as you know, Kyle Hamilton no longer in that big nickel spot. He's no longer that third safety in the second level line of scrimmage of this defense, wreaking havoc. He's out there in the back end securing it and still having the range to attack the ball carrier at the snap and being able to still wreak havoc on certain situations. Intermediate routes, deep routes, of course, are a no-go. Teams are not attacking Kyle Hamilton, and it'd be foolish to do so. So Kyle Hamilton moving back there, Darius Washington looking more comfortable each and every week in his position as back-end safety. A little bit of Brandon Stevens, a little more Trey White than we are used to seeing. I think that transition from Brandon Stevens and Trey White, I think the Ravens are trying to get a feel of who they're more comfortable with back there. But Trey White has looked very good for the second straight week. Doesn't look nervous out there, very confident in his ability. I don't know. Seems like the only matter of time before that switch is made, but Brandon Stevens played good too. Stevens played well in this game. But we mentioned no Roquan Smith, so Malik Harrison has to step up. Chris Board is brought in to step up. Trenton Simpson reduced the number of snaps, and that's probably because Malik Harrison plays so well in this game. Early on, he struggled a little bit. I think he was just a little too amped up. But once you realize it's football and you get your acumen together, then you can wreak havoc. I mean, he was the force at the line of scrimmage. Each and every snap, he was pounding the line of scrimmage and clogging up those holes so that his other friends, his other linebackers can get in on the tackles. I think he was second in the league in tackles in week 12. So that's a testament to his ferocity. I mean, he mentioned it. Not a lot of people have faith in his ability coming into this game. I dare you to say otherwise. I mean, even if you're the hardest of Ravens fans, you have to admit that the drop off between Roquan Smith to Malik Harrison was very concerning. But he came in and he played lights out. And that now gives the Ravens defense another man they can rely on. Expect Malik Harrison to show up and show out in different situations. He's not going away. I'm just letting you know, this guy is looking very good. So, very interesting to see how the Ravens can attack this in the offseason. I still think the Ravens would be wise to go after another linebacker. Trenton Simpson has been okay. Not the guy that many expected, given that full-time role once Patrick Queen left. The drop-off has been noticeable. Not drastic, but noticeable. So it'll be interesting to see what the Ravens do in the offseason. But for now, they have some guys. This linebacker by committee is going to look very good in the coming weeks. Now, Roquan Smith was injured last week, unable to play, but he's practicing this week. Whether or not he's going to be available for the Eagles game, we'll soon find out. But as of now, this linebacker group is looking good, and that's the great thing about getting reps for these guys. Invaluable, especially prime time television, big game atmosphere. You want to get your players these type of looks, especially your young players. So good job by Malik Harrison to get the job done in this run defense. Really proved itself, even though they had some guys, and J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards, guys that Ravens fans and players are familiar with. The Ravens were able to still come out on top. Overall, great game. I think the Ravens are building something here on defense. Offense, more of the same. It's very hard to hold this offense under 30 points. We say it each and every week. For the most part, if the Ravens are scoring 30 points, they're winning. I don't think they've lost a game when they scored 30 points ever. But they have lost games when they scored under 30 points. So that's probably the game plan for these guys going in. Easier said than done. When we come back, we'll talk a little more about certain someone, number 8, who is creeping into the historical category of players. And I'm talking about number 8, Lamar Jackson. MV3 coming up? Possibly. But there's more to it than that, and we'll touch on it next on Ravens Talk. What's going on, Ravens fans? We are back with Ravens Talk. Ravens once again picking up the victory, 30-23 over the Los Angeles Chargers. Headlined by the great performance by Derrick Henry and one Lamar Jackson. And speaking of Lamar Jackson, we are creeping into December football. And when December football starts, playoffs are the name of the game. And we are witnessing a quarterback in Lamar Jackson who has, let's say, struggled a little bit in the postseason. I mean, that's a strong word, struggle, because the Ravens haven't really had a lot of opportunities in the postseason with Lamar Jackson. He went 1-for-1 in the conference AFC last year, and now he has a chance to get some payback. And so now the question is reigning. Now we're seeing a Lamar Jackson area, but the question about whether or not Lamar Jackson's a good quarterback is over. Thankfully, thank God. It's over. No one's asking whether or not Lamar Jackson is a good quarterback. You got some trolls every once in a while on social media who call him a running back. Sure, fine. You get the memes out there, even by national media, who say, not bad for a running back, just to insinuate how foolish the term was. But other than that, I think the notion that Lamar Jackson isn't a top-tier quarterback has been thrown out the window. Now the question is, how good is Lamar Jackson in the grand scheme of things? And we're talking about encompassing the entirety of great quarterbacks who've ever done it. Lamar's up there, in my opinion. I mean, he is doing things that I just can't explain. There was a portion in the game against the Chargers where it looked like a sure sack, and Lamar simply Jedi mind tricked his way out of the sack. I don't even know how to explain it. Tossed it into Zay Flowers for a huge gain down the sideline. These are the things that only Lamar Jackson can do. So the question is, how great can he be considered without a championship? I think championships are great, but who are you as a player, and what have you done for the franchise? What have you done for the league? Lamar's up there. I mean, he has the potential to be one of the greatest to ever do it. A top 10, top 5. The ceiling, and Zay Flowers mentioned this on different, I'm not sure if it was a podcast or a show or post-game show or whatever. Lamar has no ceiling. That is a very accurate assessment by Zay Flowers. Lamar Jackson has no ceiling. He will go as far as he is willing to with his ability. He has done amazing things throughout his career. Currently, I mean, who's the better quarterback? I mean, ask yourself, as of this recording, and Thursday Night Football has not happened yet for Week 13, but who leads the league in passing yards? Lamar Jackson. Who leads the league in passing touchdowns? Lamar Jackson. Who leads the league in rushing yards for a quarterback? Lamar Jackson. Who leads the league in quarterback rating? Lamar Jackson. Who leads the league in QBR? Lamar Jackson. I mean, this is historically one of the most fascinating, phenomenal stretches of football in the season that I've ever seen. I mean, it's just ridiculous what he's able to do. And he hasn't even played perfect football the last 2 weeks. I mean, he struggled against the Steelers. He was, I want to say his stats weren't up there for the Chargers game, but he has as much to do with the victory against the Chargers as anyone. I think he threw for under 200 yards, but had one rushing touchdown, I should say, and 2 passing touchdowns. So it's not like he's not getting into the end zone. He's doing whatever he wants out there. He is at the whim of the defensive coordinator. What are you trying to take away? Okay, I'll do the other thing. Good luck. So what we're witnessing with Lamar Jackson is pretty great, and I'd be remiss if I didn't take the opportunity to commend the organization of the Baltimore Ravens, because I'm not sure there are many other franchises out there who will be able to surround their quarterback, who is, raw at first. Let's just call it what it is. He was a raw talent. He wasn't superb in any which way besides his legs. He was always a great thrower at Louisville. I mean, let's just get that out the way. But as far as progressing into being the guy who can dissect the defense, who's able to dissect things at the line of scrimmage, things of that nature, he has improved vastly. He wasn't poor before. So when I say vastly, that shows you the type of ability he's shown at the line of scrimmage, at least in this season. So a huge vote of confidence and a huge vote of gratitude if you're Lamar Jackson has to go to this franchise who has done anything possible to surround this guy with not only talent, but coaching and patience. I think we need to look back to the 2018, I believe, season for Lamar Jackson, where he comes in for Joe Flacco, has a playoff game where he plays poorly. Even Ravens fans were booing him at one point. And instead of bringing in Joe Flacco, they stick with Lamar Jackson because they had a vision. That level of confidence you don't see in the NFL. Look at what the Giants are doing with Daniel Jones. Look at what's going on with the Jets and Aaron Rodgers, with Deshaun Watson and the Browns. These guys who have talent who don't seem to be able to put it together. And that's likely because, one, I mean, those guys are not as great as Lamar Jackson, obviously. But two, the franchises are doing everything possible to put whatever pieces they need to around Lamar and giving him the confidence and the ability to shine. I mean, Lamar has a very specific skill set. And this offense that they've garnered up, started with Greg Roman, now with Tal Monken, has been beautifully orchestrated around this guy to make him an unstoppable weapon. I mean, this guy, I wish you guys, if you haven't seen Lamar Jackson play in person in the regular season, I really need you to count your pennies, do whatever you have to do, go on out there in the football field and watch this guy work, because the cameras are not doing this man any justice. It's almost unheard of what we're witnessing. The closest thing I've seen to Lamar Jackson is a mixture of Aaron Rodgers and Michael Vick. I mean, maybe a tad bit of Steve Young in there, but for the most part, this is just a quarterback who is doing whatever he wants to on the football field, and the defense is having a very difficult time trying to stop him. The Chargers, I think, tried their best to limit Lamar. The Chargers did. And that gave Derrick Henry and Justin some more opportunities to run with the football. That's probably a good move on their part, especially considering how the game was going. Not a lot of teams are going to do that. I think we'll talk about it up next about the Eagles, but the Eagles likely are going to take the different approach and attack Derrick Henry more. We'll see how that plays out. But these are teams that you can't defend both. I mean, we said this in April when the Ravens brought in Derrick Henry. You can't defend both of these guys. What are you going to do? You're really starting to see it, and it starts with number 8. So this is just a great opportunity in Week 13 to sit back and appreciate what we're seeing from Lamar Jackson. And let's start thinking historic. I know the championship is the last stamp of approval for a lot of people, but take away the gold. Steve, there's a lot of guys out there, Dan Marino being one, who didn't win a championship, and we still need to take the time to isolate that and really enjoy what we're watching with Lamar. The championship is going to come. I think this year, if not, maybe next year, whatever the case may be, you have to appreciate what we're seeing from this guy. It's truly incredible. When we come back, we'll talk about the game of the week, America's game, whatever you want to call it. Ravens, Eagles. I mean, these are two teams streaking in the right direction as far as postseason. We'll see There's a team in the NFC and the Detroit Lions that may have something to say about it. For the Eagles and the team in the AFC West, Kansas City Chiefs, they may have something to say about their championship aspirations for the Ravens, but these two teams are playing as well as any other team in the NFL, and they're getting it done on the ground. Which team comes out on top? We'll talk about it next on Ravens Talk. We are back with Ravens Talk. As you mentioned, the Ravens and the Eagles are going head-to-head. Eagles are 9-2, Ravens 8-4. It is looking like a matchup delicious in potential scoring and even some defense. If you're looking at it on the opposite side, it's going to be quite the game, and I'm loving the matchup possibilities for the Ravens. Let's talk about it, because Saquon Barkley, as you mentioned, destroyed the Rams. 255 yards, I believe, 300 yards from scrimmage. I think he had about 47 reception yards against the Chargers, the Rams in that game. So the Eagles are doing what they had to do. They're definitely pushing the agenda with Saquon Barkley, and Barkley's had a great season. I think the play of the game that everybody's remembering, not the play of the game, but the play of the year that everyone's talking about is that backwards hurdle that Saquon Barkley did. But there's been other plays in this season for the Eagles where you look at Saquon Barkley and you wonder what the heck were the Giants thinking when they got rid of him. Whatever the case may be, the Eagles got themselves a stud in Saquon Barkley, and the Ravens got themselves a stud in Derrick Henry. There's some fans who thought that maybe the Ravens should have went after Saquon, and if you see the plays that Saquon is doing, you understand why. Saquon has been amazing in both the running and passing aspect. As of now, Saquon is the leading rusher in the National Football League, and number 2 is Derrick Henry. So it's going to be quite the contest at M&T Bank Stadium. So let's get into it. We'll talk about the Ravens first. I mean, do we need to spend any time on this? The front 7 of the Eagles is formidable. Don't get me wrong, but again, we touch on it every week. Do you have a disruptor? You can point to Carter, perhaps, for the Eagles as being that guy, but I'm talking about guys like Max Crosby, guys like TJ Watt, Myles Garrett, guys that can really disrupt what you're doing on offense simply by being who they are at the line of scrimmage. The Eagles don't have that. They're great on defense, regardless. But I'm looking at this game and I'm thinking about the Broncos matchup, about how they have the total defense to stop Lamar, but they don't have that disruptor that will really go in there and stop things. So that's my thought process heading into this game. I still think that Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson, Justice Hill, and company will have success running the football against this team. The Ravens cannot get discouraged early on. There's a chance the Eagles may get off to a fast start, and you're looking at a 7-10, 14-point deficit. Stick with your guns, run the football, establish the run, and things will fall in place for the Ravens. Whether or not that gives them the victory remains to be seen, but that needs to be the mindset that this team has heading into this pivotal matchup. Even though it is an NFC opponent, and you know how the Ravens do against NFC teams, this is one of the better NFC teams that the Ravens have faced this stretch of games with Lamar Jackson. So there's a potential for a loss here for the Ravens, just based on what's going on paper. Now, on the opposite side of the ball, the Ravens defense against this offense, Roquan Smith comes back. It's bad news for the Eagles, I think. If Roquan's playing at the level in which he does, that hamstring injury may cause some issues. He may try and come out there and be at 60%. Is a 60% Roquan Smith better than a 100% Malik Harrison? I don't know, but that's something that the training staff over in Baltimore and the coaching staff will need to figure out for themselves. But what I've seen on film leads me to believe the Ravens will have success stopping the ground game of Saquon Barkley. That doesn't mean that the Eagles can't find other ways to get Saquon the ball, either doing screens or check downs or whatever, to give Saquon an opportunity to make plays on his own. But as far as the schematics go, I think the Ravens defense has an opportunity to really shut this run game down. But how much of it will be them selling themselves to stop Saquon and giving Jalen Hurts an opportunity to get it done with his arm? As of this recording, it looks like Devontae Smith is not practicing, so his absence may be a big deal, as A.J. Brown will be taking the bulk of the carries, I would say, bulk of the targets for Hurts in this matchup. So we'll see what the Ravens do. Again, I think the defense will have success. How much success will the defense have will be interesting, because the Ravens haven't had to face off against a receiver of this quality and A.J. Brown since really the Bengals game on Thursday night, where Jamar Chase went crazy. So it'll be interesting to see what this new approach that Zachary Orr has implemented with this defense, having Kyle Hamilton in the back end, having more Trey White during snaps. Let's see what this defense can get done. The pass rush hasn't been talked about as much. The Ravens are third in sacks. Ravens have had sacks galore this season. They haven't had really a lot of trouble with that, but the pass rush has been there. And I think that starts with Odafe Oweh. His emergence as a pass rusher has really helped this team out. Having Travis Jones healthy, the interior push along with Nnamdi Madubuike gives the Eagles a lot of things to think about as far as what they're able to do. So this could be the type of game where we're talking about maybe double digits in terms of winning for the Ravens. I do like the Ravens in this one. How much? I don't know. We'll see as the show comes to a close. I'm still trying to rack my brain around what exactly the Eagles could do to counteract some of the strengths of this defense. I don't think that the Ravens are going to be, I'm sorry, I don't think the Eagles are going to be simply throwing the football at whim, kind of like what the Bengals did. They did have success doing that, but I think, again, as I mentioned last week, this team is predicated on running the football and building off of that, something the Chargers had to do. And they had success early, but when the Ravens finally slowed their run game down and turned them into a one-dimensional team, you saw the struggles. Now, in my opinion, and this is no knock for you Philadelphia Eagles fans out there, in my opinion, Herbert's a better passer than Hurts. I mean, I think when you build and you're trying to mold the perfect quarterback, I think the perfect quarterback you're looking at looks a lot like Justin Herbert. So it's not really a knock on Hurts to say that, but there are things that Herbert can do that Hurts simply can't. And there's things that Herbert can do that Lamar can't in some aspects. So not a knock at all, but you saw the success the Ravens had against Herbert when they made him one-dimensional. They held him to under 220 yards, no touchdowns. So the Eagles took that approach to be one-dimensional. I think the newly formed defense with the way to have Kyle Hamilton back there to limit the big plays will really slow this team down and force them to think otherwise. So I think that will be the approach for the Ravens in this one. Obviously, slow down Saquon Barkley. Do whatever it takes to slow him down. If you're not having success, in case of a Roquan injury, keeping him sidelined or whatever happens, Malik Harrison, if he continues to build on that performance of last week or not, whatever the case may be, find a way to stop Saquon should be your number one goal. If you can do it with 5 guys, perfect. If you need 6 or 7 guys, be prepared to answer for that on the back end because Jalen Hurts has that arm and he has the talent around him to really do some damage. When we come back, we'll get final thoughts in the game. You heard me talking about it, so I think you know where I'm leaning towards. We'll get my final predictions and close things out next on Ravens Talk. Okay, Ravens fans, welcome back to Ravens Talk. We mentioned Eagles, Ravens at M&T Bank Stadium, 4 p.m. Eastern Time. In my opinion, game of the week. You heard my thoughts on the game. You probably know where I'm leaning towards. Look, the Eagles are a great football team. They haven't really played a lot of great teams. They've only played 3 teams with a winning record so far this season, and they went 2-1. A win against the Packers in week 1, a recent win against the Commanders, and a loss against the Falcons in week 2. Besides that, every team they faced has a losing record. So it doesn't really give me a sense of where this team is really at. I mean, they're doing what they need to do. They're winning against poor teams, but I need to see more. You know, if you watch me on the AFC North Roundtable, you see what I say about the Steelers all the time. They haven't really played anybody good. You know, they did beat the Commanders by a touchdown. I mean, by a point, I should say. And they beat the Ravens by kicking 6 field goals. But besides that, what has the Steelers done? I'm not going to disrespect the Eagles that much. All I will say is the Eagles' strength is going up against the Ravens' strength. And the Ravens are very good at stopping the run. And the Eagles have any chance of winning this game, they need to get it going with their run game. I mean, they got one of the better running backs in the league. In fact, he's the league leader in rushing, is Saquon Barkley. So if there's anybody that's going to have a chance to get it done against this defense, it is Saquon Barkley. He'll need to do so if this Eagles team has any chance of winning this football game. I just don't see it. So I'm going to go ahead and give the Ravens the victory, 31-21. Give me a 10-point victory for the Ravens, and they move ahead to the bye week, a much-needed bye after a long slate of games against very tough competition. That's going to do it for us here at Ravens Talk. I hope you guys enjoy the game. Enjoy the holidays with your families. Make sure you guys drop a like and comment if you're on YouTube with what you're thankful for as far as this Ravens team this season. Definitely wish you guys all the best. We will be back next week to pick apart this huge game against the Eagles and look back around the season take a look ahead at some matchups outside of the Ravens, because of course the Ravens will be playing in Week 14. But we'll touch on some topics and kind of get a feel of where the Ravens will be at as the playoff picture unfolds for the remainder of the season. Again, that's going to do it for us here at Ravens Talk. Happy holidays. See you next week.